Yeah, so we are online. So thank you, Ursula, for joining us today. I apologize for the mess with all the technical things that went around. I hope we get some viewers soon after I invited everyone like last minute for the newsroom, this new room. So I would like you to introduce yourself, and we can keep on the conversation.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Ursula Tischner. I'm an architect, artist, and design researcher by training, and I worked at the Wuppertal Institute for Climate, Environment, and Energy between 2092, or no, actually, yeah, 2092 and 2096, so for 4 years as an environmental researcher. And after that, I founded my own company called eConcept, Agency for Sustainable Design. And I'm still running this company in Cologne, in Germany, and we're actually consulting companies, we're doing research, we're doing education and training, but everything related to design for sustainability in the sense of social and environmental sustainability and, of course, economic value creation. And so I think we have formed the theory and the practice in that area quite a lot in the last 20 years, and we've written some books about it. And I'm also educating, like having different professorships at different schools in Germany and in Europe and internationally. So I'm trying to teach design for sustainability as well.
Great.
Was it fast?
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
Great. And besides that, she was my first boss in Germany, and it was awesome to work at eConcept. I think it was one of the my meaningful experience that I had so far.
Great. Thanks, Mauro. You're a great intern as well.
Thank you. I'd like to start like that. Although the students already saw the presentation on the internet and so on, it gives some insights of what is about the Innovatives, the platform, and how it's what's the reason behind and how it's gonna support social entrepreneurship.
Okay, thanks. So InnoNatives is an open innovation for sustainability platform, and it's actually the result of a European research project, which we started in 2012. And what I thought, because I have created this project, I was teaching in the US for 3 years, and I've come in contact with all those maker movements and the crowd-based activities like crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and Kickstarter and all of these movements. And the people were doing a lot of very stupid projects with this kind of crowd-based activity, like making toy guns for their children and stuff like that. So I thought, oh, I mean, actually the tools are super fantastic, and this idea of basing it on the crowd, like everybody can, you know, team up and do something together and put together the creativity and put together the funds to create projects which regular companies might not be interested in or might not be able to do. I think that's a very good movement. So I thought, let's use all of that and for the purpose of sustainability, so making the world a little better and creating meaningful projects and not just like stupid, ridiculous little toy, whatever, guns and stuff like that. So that is why I wrote this European research proposal, and luckily enough, the EU gave us some money so we could start this project. We have a 50% funding, 50% comes from our own pockets and our partners, and together we try to create this platform. So the platform just went online a couple of weeks ago, and now what we do on that platform is we will run sustainability-related challenges, meaning innovation projects, and everybody can team up, they can suggest problems to go on the platform as projects, they can work together with the whole international innovation crowd and create solutions and ideas. So they can win money and they can win prizes and they become famous. But then also the platform has crowdfunding. So the crowd will put together money for the best projects so that we can really implement the projects. And we have an online shop where you can also sell your great solutions. So at the end, from the problem definition at the beginning to the final implementation and also the trading of solutions and the exchange of solutions, everything can be facilitated by that online platform. On top of that, we have an expert system and evaluation tools. So we can also work with people and teach them a little bit how to evaluate sustainability. We can invite the experts to consult the projects, and these are international experts all over the world who are very experienced in sustainability and innovation and these themes. So I think it's really a good opportunity for instance, students to work with us on great projects, or professors to invite their students and have semester projects that can go online, or like companies, small companies that cannot afford to have their own innovation platforms, that can actually use our platform and do some sustainability related projects. So I'm actually very excited about this opportunity. Now we just have to get it going.
Okay, cool. That sounds like a nice place to output all the projects that we might have in our project, in our quiz project at KIST. Regarding the usage of the platform, like how besides the funding, the two fundings, is there any other revenue stream that comes into the platform that makes it like self-sustaining?
Yeah, that is a part of the research project, is to find the right business model for the platform itself. So that is something we still have to do. So now we have launched the beta platform, the beta version. We are going to test use it for 2 years, and during that time we will try to figure out how we can actually get some income for the organization running the platform, because I mean, you know, you have to pay some people facilitating, you have to pay the, you know, software company to do improvements, you have to, some costs are there. It's not a lot, but still it's there, and so we have to figure out how we can get some income, and we plan to do it like everybody else does it, like, I mean, get some percentages of the financial transactions that are facilitated by the platform. Like if you have crowdfunding, maybe you can take 5% or 10% of the what is like created in terms of revenue, or when you sell something over the shop, you can maybe have a percentage of that. And on top of that, I think once the platform is running and companies will use it, the companies that have commercial interest should actually pay a little fee for using the platform. And so that is how we hope to get some income from different sources that can facilitate that we can, you know, continue with the platform after the project.
Okay, interesting. We have our first question. Kai is asking, can you elaborate on how to evaluate sustainability? So how does...
Okay, generally sustainability has 3 pillars. I'm sure you guys know that. So we talk about sustainability in the sense of environment, in the sense of social, and in the sense of economic. And so normally you would say, okay, environment, that means let's look at all the environmental impacts, like look into material consumption, energy consumption, resources, are they renewable or not, pollution, depletion of resources and stuff like that. If you go about social, you would look into fair trade issues, labor conditions. Is your product actually good for the people, or is it destroying social cohesion and social context and things like that? When it comes to economy, of course, you look into economic value that you create, but not just for the companies, but also for the people, also for the communities, and also for everybody who participates in a business model. So that's how we understand sustainability at the platform. And we have a little tool which is like an assessment tool. It's pretty quick and dirty. It's not yet there, but we will upload it this week. And it's based on work that I have done with Carlo Vezzoli from Politecnico Milano and myself in different European projects, and we have created this relatively straightforward assessment tool for people to figure out themselves, okay, on the one hand, is the problem that I suggest really relevant for sustainability, but then also is the solution that I propose really going into the right direction. And so we will try to cover always all the 3 dimensions, social, environment, economic, but sometimes a problem is just social, so then we will focus more on the social. Sometimes the problem is more related to environment, then we might focus more on environmental aspects. I don't hear you.
So thank you. And I have a question then. What are the parameters then to be eligible for the platform? Like, which kind of projects? How I get kicked out or get in of this opportunity?
Okay, generally everybody can participate and we can run all sorts of different projects. The only condition we have, it has to be related to sustainability. So that means we from the platform, we are the facilitators and moderators of these projects, and the first thing we will do is once somebody suggests a problem, we will evaluate if it's going to cover enough sustainability issues, and we will probably use that tool for it, or just check, is the origin of the problem, is it really related to social aspects or to environmental aspects? And so that is the thing that the platform will actually do, and then we will encourage those people to step forward and to upload their challenge. Okay, so there's like you first of all post a challenge and then it is checked by the platform, and then we will publish it once we think it's good enough, or maybe we will work with those persons suggesting the problems so to make it so good that it can go online. In a later stage, actually, when we have hopefully a lot of proposals for a lot of challenges, the crowd will vote. So we will have crowd voting on which are the most meaningful problems that should be covered by the platform, because you can imagine, I mean, if we have like 100 proposals a day, we cannot totally, evaluate all of these proposals. So we think that it's probably a good idea that the crowd itself can actually judge, is it really a meaningful problem and is it really important enough that we like to work on it from the platform, So, but that is more for a later stage.
Okay, and it's interesting because it's really crowd-based in the sense of the judgment and so on. Or however, there is a board of specialists that are going to curate both the challenge and the solutions, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any other kind of support that's needed? Like every time I see social entrepreneurship or this kind of ideas, they have a lack of business understanding or design understanding and so on. So, in your opinion, like, what are the main things that you have to skill up when you are applying or when you're developing ideas on that level? Besides the sustainability knowledge, what else?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Mauro. I think one bottleneck for a lot of good projects is that they are not just good from a social and environmental point of view, but also that they have a decent business model, like the one we have to develop for the platform itself. So what we do is these innovation projects, they go through phases. So they start like what you do in a regular design project. Maybe you start with rough ideas, and then you develop some more detailed concepts, and then at the end you develop solutions. And for the solutions, we already ask for an idea for a business model. So you have to fill in a form, and the form already asks you, okay, so what's the stage of your idea? How difficult is it to implement? What are you still missing in terms of implementation? So do you need partners? Do you need money? Do you need a technology that's not yet there? So what is the bottleneck? And also, how is your business model? So you should already think about it once you propose a final solution to the platform. You should at least have an idea on, okay, I will sell it there, or I need that much money, and I will get it from there. And if you don't have money yourself, then you can also say, no, I need a crowdfunding campaign. So once my solution is selected by the crowd and by the jury and by the experts, then you always have the opportunity also to go for crowdfunding and get some funds to get it started. But for a crowdfunding campaign, already you need a business model. So you need to know how much money do I need to maybe produce something or to set up an app or to create an organization. So you need to provide that with your final solution or with your crowdfunding project. In the case that you are not able to do that, you can search help from the platform. So you can tell the platform, meaning us, the facilitators, you can tell them, okay, I have this great idea and now I'm the winner, but I'm missing this or I'm missing that, and then we try to connect you with experts that can help you to develop the part that is not yet developed in your solution. And this is why we have this international group of experts from different fields also. And on top of that, we have a kind of blog where people can search for expertise, for instance, you know. So within the platform, you can also search for partners for you to include in your project team. You can search for expertise that you don't have or for things that are still missing. So the platform tries to facilitate also this. It's like a, how you say, blackboard, nor like a stock exchange for, you know, expertise and stuff like that. Yeah, so in ideal cases, you have a good understanding of sustainability, again, in the 3 dimensions. So you should know what's the social, what's the environmental, but also what is the economic aspect and how would you market your solution at the end.
Kai has another question here. It's about, but if there is an experts jury or there is a board, in the end, or it's just a crowd decision?
Mm-hmm. That is a little bit up to the person who formulates the challenge. So every challenge has a challenge owner or some challenge owners who are interested in, you know, realizing the ideas and the solutions at the end. So sometimes that can be a company, sometimes that can be an NGO, it can be a municipality, whatever. And this person describes the challenge also in the sense of, how will I judge? How would I like to judge? What is the criteria to select the best ideas, right? And so depending on the need of this challenge owner, like, I mean, it could be a big company and the company might say, no, you know, we have all the expertise ourselves. We will do crowd voting and then we will decide, like, by 50% crowd voting, 50% our own expertise, and that will make the judgment for what are the best solutions and the winners. It can also be that they say, no, what we actually want is 30% experts of the platform, 30% the crowd, 30% us. So that is a little flexible, but in all cases it will be known at the very beginning. So in the challenge description, you will see very transparent all the conditions for criteria and evaluation and how is the judgment process done and so on and so on, so that it's clear for everybody who participates in the challenge how the winners will be selected and what's the prize money and all of these conditions, actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's for me, it's I really like all this crowd movement. I have some friends in Brazil that are really engaged on that and doing a lot, especially regarding financing. So they create platforms that are self-sustaining, and they are really quite transparent on how they place the bills. And for example, even to run the platform, it's a project inside of their own platform. So basically, it's an ongoing project that people has to give the money, so then the platform can develop itself. One of the points that we had this morning in the conversation with Martin and Manuel was exactly regarding trust and transparency. So one of the problems that we had with like funding, for example, for projects on sustainability and academic work, is there is no transparency for the bigger public, for the bigger group, where the money goes and how all these different things work. What are your ideas, like how this platform can support transparency and trust, establish a better trust between the idea owners, so the people who's providing the idea, and the crowdfunding people? Like, how do you see this point?
Yeah. Okay. I think there are a couple of dimensions. So first thing is this idea of idea ownership and copyrights. That's one very important thing, and every time I talk with designers about the platform, the first question that the designers ask is, yeah, but if I give my ideas to the platform and I'm not the winner, then the idea is public, and so I cannot sell it anymore. And yes, you're right, but the platform has a very, I think it's a very fair model for IPR, intellectual property right protection. So basically, everything that works in open innovation challenges is public, but we adopt the Creative Commons license. Have you heard about the Creative Commons license models? There are several different types of Creative Commons licenses, and the one that we adopt for the overall platform is the one where you can use the ideas of others, you can share it, and you can develop it further, but you always have to mention the origin, so the original person who developed the idea, and you are not allowed to commercialize it. So you're not allowed to use it for commercial purposes. You can use it, you can refer to it, you have to mention the owner, you cannot commercialize. So anytime somebody wants to commercialize any of the ideas that they've seen on InnoNatives, they need to create a contract with that person who had the first idea, which you can still see on InnoNatives, basically, right? So once you publish it there, it's connected to your name, and in a way you can prove that you have published it then. Okay. So the other thing is, if you have really a very, very good idea, I think you should yourself try to protect it before you talk with anyone about it. Like, you know, if you have developed a new technology, you should actually go for like market, how do you say, what's it, Gebrauchsmusterschutz, like a paid patent or something else, and protect it before you give it to the outside world. But then overall, trust and transparency, the platform really tries to be as transparent as possible, because for every deal that we do over the platform, the conditions and the terms are published at the very beginning, and everybody who participates in any kind of project knows exactly the rights and the duties that you have in this kind of project, and it's always very open, very transparent, and you can read it. And we even have a lawyer who's dealing only with intellectual property right and copyright protection, and this lawyer has developed a module for the platform where those people formulating the challenges can set up contracts about copyright and IPR protection. So and this contract will be part of every challenge if it's a challenge that has some other Creative Commons license than the one that I just described. And so you can always read it, you know exactly what's happening, and you see who gave which ideas, and you know, I think it's as transparent as we can make it possibly. And then at the end, by using it now, we will see if that's enough, or if it needs something else, or if we need to communicate it differently. But I think we have really tried to make it as transparent and as trustworthy as we could. The other thing you've asked for is crowdfunding projects. So if I give my money to a project, how do I know if that money is really spent in the right way, and so on? We are not sure yet, because at the moment, probably you know that in the whole European Union, crowdfunding is a very difficult thing, because there's legislation that has just been published, and it's going to be more strict any day, and it's very difficult to do things like crowd investment and crowd lending, and all of that stuff gets very difficult because all of this financial transaction legislation gets very much more strict for these kind of projects. So we are trying to, at the moment, we will probably only do two things. We will do donations, so crowd-based donations, meaning you just give money to a project because you think it's a great project and you want to support it. And only when that money, the amount that these people have defined will be created, then actually the money flow starts. So you don't pay anything in advance, you only pay once they have reached their funding target. Okay, so you don't have to transfer money back and forth once the amount has not been reached. And then the other thing we will do is pre-sales. So that means you know exactly, you get a product or you get something and you pay a price for it. And so at the end, it's actually once they have reached the funding goal and they have had the money to produce it, then you will get your product. And if you don't get your product, you can always go back and say, hey, I gave you the money, I need to get that product. So I think these two are relatively easy to organize. It gets much more complicated when you go for crowd lending and crowd investment and all these, you know, return on investment things, because then you're almost like a bank, and then you have to create a prospect, and then it's a very different situation. We plan to do that a little later, but for them probably in cooperation with a banking institution, so that they do all the guarantees and everything that's related to financial transactions. But for the moment, we will probably just do pre-sales and donation-based crowdfunding.
And what kind of things the people should be aware? Now shifting a bit from the platform. By the way, I'd like to invite the people to make the questions here. Then you help me to take it as much from Ursula as you can. Like it worth. So shifting from the platform now, going for the social and sustainable approach, like pro projects and so on. Which kind of challenge like people usually face when they start a project? So let's say the students now are going to start all the process from scratch, from zero. They have even no challenge yet. We are going to still decide which kind of challenge you're going to take and how you're going to make the challenge happen in the classroom. So which kind of things they should be aware, and how they could start a project and get it in the right direction from the beginning.
Okay. So first thing I would recommend is, because you only have 4 days, is that right? Or how long is your project? 4 days?
4 days, exactly.
So you should focus on a problem very, very soon, because I mean, I know there are so many problems out there, and you could search for 4 days only for the right problem. Obviously, you don't have the time. So I think you should focus on a problem really, really soon, maybe in the first half day, and then you should invest some time in doing research. A lot of projects fail because the research in the beginning has not been done well enough, or has not been done thoroughly enough. Just one example, I like to mention that quite often. Maybe you've seen that in one of my presentations. You know, this window farm org project. You know, it's like a designer in New York, Britta. She has created this system how to plant your own plants in front of your windows in your apartment in New York. So she takes these PET bottles, plastic bottles, puts them on the windows, like upside down, cuts them open, puts some soil in and some irrigation system, and so everybody should plant their plants in that soil and the PET bottles in front of their windows. Okay, so far so good. Now there's the big issue with this project. What do you think it is? Why I always say it's not sustainable?
Because you're just like downcycling products, so you need still the PET, right? Or?
You see, it's PET bottles or some other plastic bottles, and we know what happens with these bottles when they're in front of the window with the UV radiation and in water and with some acidic soil in it and so on. There are nasty substances that come out of the bottles into the soil, into the water, into the plants, and then you eat it even, you know. Like this person is actually poisoning her growing community with the concept that she proposes, and that should not happen, because it's the opposite of being sustainable, you know. And if she had done some more research in the beginning of her project and were thinking a little bit about materials and things like that, she might have suggested glass jars or something else, but not plastic bottles, you know. And so that's the point. The point is define the problem very soon, and then go and do some really in-depth research about what's really the problem and how you can create solutions, and then do some good thinking about which solution it needs, you know. Like, it's not always a product, it's not always technology. You talk about social innovation, so very often it's the behavior of people. So what about behavior of people? And then again, that's another thing that needs some thorough exploration, because how do you change behavior? It's a big issue. And I always like to talk about the social learning cycle, where behavior change has 4 big elements. One is, okay, you have to be aware that there's a problem or some issue. Then you have to have motivation. That can be intrinsic or extrinsic. So you need them to want to change. Then you need to create opportunities for them. That's your job as a designer. You can create a lot of interesting new opportunities. You should enable them to experiment and try it without being afraid that something fails, like in an experimentation, which is maybe fun even to do it. And then the last thing is you should get some positive reinforcement. So they should have tried this new behavior. It should have been positive for them, maybe because somebody says, oh, that's super cool, or because it's for them really good. They save money, they save time, they save energy, whatever. And so at the end, they go with a feeling that this new behavior might be really positive, and then hopefully they continue with it. But these 4 elements, all of them need to be there, like awareness, motivation, opportunities, and positive reinforcement. And then it's very likely that the new behavior might be good for them. So if you talk about social innovation, very often you talk about behavior change, and then you need to figure out why do people behave in the way they behave now, and how can you make that new behavior for them really interesting and positive and beneficial.
Cool, cool. I think it's really, yeah, it's enlightening. I remember once, like when we was working with you long ago, there was this big meeting about the concern about like you have all this sustainability guidelines and all this approach for like reducing resources, use of natural resources, or so guidelines to follow. And I remember that one of the biggest discussions was about what about the user. So the guidelines, they kind of follow like needs of communities, needs of economic needs and so on, but the user is never considered inside of these aspects. So what's the balance between the needs of the user or the user aspects and that and the sustainable priorities? So how does it work?
Yeah. I mean, what we know, meanwhile, is that technology will probably not save the world, and we can create all these great new products, but if the people don't use them or use them in the wrong way, then it's still not good enough. And I mean, we know with the growing middle class in countries like India and China, we will simply use more and more and more and more products, and if they are still efficient, but only because of the amount of what we use, it will never bring the total environmental consumption down. So we urgently, really urgently need this user-centered design that understands how to offer functions to the user rather than selling products, like, I mean, product service systems rather than just selling products. And I think that is very essential. It's very important for us designers to understand, okay, it doesn't need to be back to the cave. We don't want to live on trees, but we need to organize our modern life in a way that the users can actually fulfill their needs in a good way. But at the same time, we drastically reduce the amount of materials, the amount of products, the amount of maybe space that it's needed to do that, because we simply don't have enough of that for 9 billion people in 2050 on this planet, And so I think some people call it user-centered design. Some people call it, moving to services and systems rather than designing products. Whatever you call it, I think it's essential to figure out how can we organize our lives in the future. In Germany, at the moment, we consume 60 tons of resources per person every year, and we need to move down to 6 tons resources per person per year. So that means we need to get rid of about a factor 10 of materials in our daily lifestyles, right? So I think that's a big it's a big challenge actually, but it's not impossible. Like, I mean, you have all these new things like car sharing. People don't even young people don't even want to get their driving licenses because they don't want to have an own car. They go with public transportation. People going vegan and vegetarian because they don't want to eat meat. Meat, on the one hand, has a very big impact on climate change. It uses a lot of CO2 or emits a lot of CO2, but it's also not very healthy, and of course it has some animal cruelty issues involved, and so on and so on. So I mean, there's a lot of new ideas on how we can organize our daily lives without being unhappy, but with much less consumption, of materials and resources. And so I think this is an interesting lens for designers, like the glasses that you can actually put on for the next 4 days and try to figure out, okay, where can we start and what can we do in terms of interventions with the users, not for them, but with them. So it would be cool if you could involve some users in your projects, actually, and really design with them, like co-designing stuff instead of designing for them and just doing some empirical research and things like that. And then at the end, you will see if it works and if they do change their behavior and if they have fun by doing so, and so on and so on.
Cool. And I think building on that, there is a question here from Hannah. How do people react to people trying to innovate, change their behavior? How do you do these without being patronish?
Right. Yeah, I think there's a fine line between manipulation and between like co-designing things. And if you look at the work that designers have been done so far, I think very often we are still trying to manipulate. I mean, we've done that in the past quite a lot. If you see how product design works and how advertisement works, it's always like the designers tells you, this is a beautiful product, now you have to use it, you know. And that's what we've done in the past. Now I think what is very interesting is to change the idea of what design actually is. Design is not designing something beautiful for somebody else. Design is actually working with that somebody in a context, maybe as partners, in an interactive context, and designing something together that the user likes to use and likes to do. And at the same time, you are still the expert. You know some other things and how to do stuff, how to be creative, but you should definitely involve users in the design work that you are doing. Like, you know, it gets very, very interesting when you have a lot of projects these days where designers from the West or from the North want to design for developing countries, right? And then these designers always say, oh yeah, I'm going to design a stove for India, but they've never been there, they've not lived there, they have no idea how things work over there. And so they design something which works perfectly fine, but people just don't want to use it because it has not the right form, or it has not the right color, or it doesn't fulfill the other social functions that are related to cooking at home, you know. And so I think it's really essential to work with people and not for people, and especially when it comes to behavior change. And as I said, I mean, if there's a tool, you might want to use it. It's called Design for Intent. Design with Intent cards. Maybe you know them, Maura. It's like a deck of cards from a guy called Dan Lockton from University Brunel in England. And he has created a tool how designers change behavior of people. And he has collected like, I don't know, 110 measures or methods under 6 lenses. And you can see some of the lenses are Machiavelli. So you are really authoritarian and you just tell them what to do, and if they don't do it, they get punished or something. But some of them are more very playful, like, hey, here's the game. Would you like to participate in the game? And then see if you have fun by doing things a little differently. And so I think you should, of course, try to find the strategies that are like user-friendly and involve the users and not manipulate them or dominate them. But I think it's up to you to do some really empathic work also here. Like, first of all, understand what's happening and understand how they think, and then work together.
Cool, nice. And Kai is asking here, how can we get the source for that information, the one with the tons of matter? Like, where does data come from?
Yeah, I will. Well, if you want to know about Germany, then that is studies done by the Umweltbundesamt, the Environmental Protection Agency of Germany. So if you just go to the website of the UBA, Umweltbundesamt, you will find a lot of information and studies about resource use in Germany and so on and so on. And it happens that I'm in the resource commission of that organization, so I'm one of these people consulting them. But there are so many studies out there on resource use. Like, maybe you know, the Wuppertal Institute also has studied already for 20 years the resource consumption in Germany and Europe, but also worldwide. So you get these material flow analysis for societies and so on. I think there's a lot of information out there. But if you start with the UBA, the Umweltbundesamt, then you will find a lot of information.
Cool. Another point.
Laura, sorry, can I add something? So what studies also done on the European level, we wanted to find out from all that resources, where do they actually go? So what are the consumption areas that are mostly consuming stuff? And so I can tell you it's actually 3 sources. One is food and agriculture, so what we eat. And I'm sure you know that we waste 40% of our food, we just throw it away. So that's like very disgusting, I think. Then the other one is mobility and transportation. So how we move around, how we go on holidays and so on. And then the third one is actually housing and energy consumption. So how we live and how much energy we consume in our houses. And these 3 areas together they consume about 80% of all the resources. So if you want to start somewhere, I would suggest you select one of those 3 areas, because that's very urgent, actually, to work there.
Well, it's always scary when you put numbers and data like in front of the eyes. It's always make you feel like powerless, right? In the sense of that your project, your small startup may not change the world. They may not turn these numbers anyways. Like you have no idea that it, I don't know, for example, reduce the consumption of meat in the world. Like it's quite hard to imagine that something that's going to be created now can do that, can do this work. So which kind of thoughts do you have around that? Like that the small ideas can actually have any significant impact towards the like huge numbers that you just drop?
See, I think, and I'm not the only one, there are a lot of people who think that, and there are great quotes that I can give you, like Margaret Mead, for instance. She has said that don't doubt that a small group of people can actually change the world. It's the only thing that ever did, you know. So all the change comes from people and comes from maybe one person. And if you look into these the demonstrations in the Middle East or now in Hong Kong, I mean, it's always like people who start to be not satisfied or not happy with what happens. And just by nowadays we have internet, we have social media, you can organize like mobs, you can get people together, and you can get actually a very strong movement. I mean, look at Compact and Avaz and Occupy, all these movements, they have been started by just a couple of people. And I think even if you don't create something that changes the world, you can actually create a new movement. So for instance, if you look, do you know the app, what's it called? Not food sharing, but something like that. It's like a small app where you, if you have something leftovers and in your fridge and maybe you go on holidays and it's like, I don't know, carrots and tomatoes and whatever, you can put it up online on this app. It's like a smartphone app, and then somebody in your neighborhood might be interested in it and comes by and picks it up, and so you don't have to waste it, you don't have to throw it away. It's just an exchange of food, and I mean, nobody pays. It's just like, okay, you give it to somebody else who can need it. And I mean, creating such an app, it's such a little, tiny little thing, but it can actually have such a big impact, you know. Now, the next question would be, how do you earn money with something like that? Well, I don't know. The business model is the question. But, I mean, you can also figure out that you can create small businesses, you know, that maybe organize that kind of food sharing or food, like create something from the food leftovers and then sell it to somebody else, you know. So there could be a business model behind it. But I think nowadays we have so many opportunities with internet and social media and, you know, a different way of organizing stuff, that really good ideas can actually make a big difference. And it's easier to implement good ideas, you know. So it's not like 30 years ago it was very difficult to create a new business. Nowadays you just need an app, you just need a website, you have a good idea, you do some crowdfunding campaigns, and there you go, you know. It's so much easier to do it. So I'm very positive. I think one person can actually change the world.
Yeah, me too. It's always an issue of escalation. And one of the points that I remember in your discussions, in your talks, was the question about how does it look like the look of sustainability? How does it feel sustainability, and so on. So it's like it's as if it comes with a brand. It has to be green, recyclable paper, and it has to kind of there's a set of like aspects or characteristics that kind of tells, okay, that's more sustainable. That works almost like a branding. What's your thoughts on that? I remember it was really inspiring for me to hear that.
Well, you know, I don't agree with that. Because, see, I mean, I'm in this business for 20 years now, and even when I started, and there was this time of Jute statt plastic, so, you know, like rough materials instead of plastics, or hand knitted pullover, or woolen socks and granola bar. So that's pretty much for maybe 1 or 2% of those very ideologic eco-green people, but it's not for the mainstream. And so my conviction is we really need to design stuff that is attractive, that looks nice, that is good for the people, and that fits into the lifestyle of a larger group of people, not just the very ideologic 2%. And so that's our job as a designer. I mean, we have created a model where we talk about subtle eco-design. So it's not like obviously eco. It doesn't shout out, "Oh, look here, I'm green, I'm gray," you know. And you have the fashion industry. They talk a lot about black is the new green or blue is the new green or whatever. So there are a lot of people working on how can we make sustainability attractive, and it needs to be attractive. Don't expect from people just to do something because it's moral or ethical. Good. They still want to have fun in their life, and they want to have a good lifestyle. So I think it's essential that we designers manage to make sustainable solutions attractive to the specific group of people that we work with. And that's not the same for everybody. I mean, of course, people have different values and different aesthetic ideas, and of course we have to customize it to those different target groups and groups of people that we work with. It's like normal design work that you would expect designers to do, that they make stuff or even services and solutions more attractive to people, you know. So that's not very different from what we do as sustainable designers. What we need to do, or what we try to do, is express by the design as well the story that's behind of the product, and that is very important. So it's not like another product, it's a product that has a very different story, and so our challenge is actually to tell that story by the design, or by the communication, by the packaging, by the way that we distribute these things to people, or by the system in which they are used. And so I think that is the challenge that we actually should tackle.
Okay. Just to give a reminder, we have about 10 minutes to finish, and if you want to drop any questions, feel free to do it right now. Like, still have some time for some answers here. About the escalation, like a scale. So how can one scale like sustainable projects, like especially the ones that are rooted into communities? What's the relationship between sustainability or like social entrepreneurship and scalability?
So we talk about different ways of scaling. So it's not necessarily that everything has to grow. I'm actually one of these people who say we don't need growth anymore. We only have to grow because our governments have so much debt. But anyway, that's a different story. But actually, if you think about small is beautiful, and small can be very efficient, like everything that's related to local communities, you probably don't need to scale it up in the way of making it bigger, but you can multiply it. So there's a difference between upscaling and multiplying. So it's like a franchise system, basically. Franchise doesn't mean you make a huge company, but it means you have the same model, but that can be spread all over the place. And in our case, very often you have to customize it to a specific cohesion, to a specific context in which it should happen. Like, for instance, community gardens. You have a community garden in Cologne, and you have one in Berlin, and you have one in Rome, and you have one in Milano. And of course, all of these different community gardens are different, and they have different climates, and maybe different people, and different needs. But the model of the community garden itself is maybe a very nice model, and you can learn from the model that other people have implemented. So you don't need to scale it up in the sense of making it bigger, but you just distribute it all over the place. And the same can be true for local energy systems. I mean, you probably know that some of German small towns, they have started their own energy production, and they are completely self-sufficient in terms of energy production, and some do it with solar, some do it with wind, some do it with biomass, whatever. And so these models are always very different in the different regions, but the model of being self-sufficient and how you organize decentralized energy consumption, and then if you have any surplus, how you sell it to other people and how you make money with it, that is a model that can actually be spread all over the place, right? And so I'm very much in favor of thinking about multiplying models rather than scaling it up in the sense of making it bigger and more people and so on and so on.
Good, cool. So we have no more questions here in the pipeline. I would like really to thank you for the time that you gave. It was really valuable. At least for me, it was intense to catch up. Are you sitting back in Cologne, right?
Yes, I'm in Cologne. So if you are here and if you need me, just drop me a line or call me. I can come over and we can have a coffee at KIST and then we can talk about your projects if you like.
Oh, that sounds like a great offer. I think I'm gonna take on
Or
that.
you can come and visit me in my office. It's really just 2 minutes from KIST, basically.
Awesome. I think especially the insights, especially about the platform and all the elements that compose the sustainable AD, I think it was really valuable, especially for the students to get over some of the fears and some of the prejudices regarding how to start like a project towards sustainability.
Right.
Uh,
So, what I can suggest is if you guys really want to work with InnoNatives, what we can actually do is, I mean, we might meet relatively early in your process, and then I can like demonstrate and show you how to work with it. Or you could explore it yourself, and if you have any questions, you let me know. If you want to start your project in InnoNative, it is an opportunity for you to invite other people to work with you and develop it further and give you their ideas and vote and so on. So it might be also interesting in terms of, you know, user testing and understanding what other people think about it and so on and so on. So there are a lot of opportunities. I think you should just like either test it out yourself and start a challenge, or maybe we can meet and I can explain it to you physically, you know.
cool, cool. There is one tricky question here that you are not obliged to answer, but I think would be interesting. There is Kai is asking, how do you, if you take interns?
Oh yes, I do. All the time. But we are a small office, so we can only have one at a time. We have one at the moment until January. So just apply.
Cool. Really straightforward. Great. Awesome. So see you in Cologne in 2 weeks. I'm gonna be there, and for sure we're gonna reach you out for catching up and using the innovatives.
Okay. Wonderful. Thanks, Mauro.
Okay. Ciao, ciao. Thank you.
Project. Bye.
Bye.
Success.